Welcome one and all to Office Hours, where we answer your media and tech-related production questions every single day. Alexander Knight in Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, is our reader today. Alexander, what have we got for our first question?
First question is coming from Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. I keep getting gremlins in my house of worship setup. Each week I will come into either rebooted PTZ cameras, Dante audio is not flowing, NDI is not sending signals to vMix, or stream keys from Facebook have changed. Any good ideas for good ways of monitoring this?
Alex is going to help you out. Alex Lindsay?
Yeah, there's a couple things. One is that, I mean, for most of us that do production, the challenge is keeping everything in the same state. So the first thing I would do is find out who else is using the system during the week. Is there someone else doing it where things are changing and where the variables may be shifting? Number two is typically if I was streaming a Sunday and I had a remotely complicated system, I'd probably come in on a Saturday and test it just because I don't like stress. So, and then the second thing, like I'm just not into like trying to figure it out in the moment. And then the third thing I would do is I'd probably add 2 hours to my load in, or not my load in, but my setup so I had time to figure it out. And I know that adds a lot to when you're going into a house of worship, but I just know that even from the time I was 12 years old, I got there remarkably early with my Uncle Tom A, who was probably in his 70s when I was like 12, and we would go through there was a whole system of checks for all the audio. It was just audio. We had all these systems of checks, and I would go into the sanctuary. I would walk up. I would do all these things with the mics. There was this whole process that happened for what felt like an hour and a half. I think it was an hour and a half before the event started. And if I had more complexity, I'd probably add more time. But time is really what you're looking for here. It's, that and stability, keeping the system the same, finding ways to reset the system. You may need better tools to figure that out as far as what routers are you using, what computers, how quickly can you get to an end state. I will also say this is also why I have a tendency to use hardware, is because hardware tends to not have so many gremlins because it doesn't do as much as the software. It's not as flexible as the software, but when you turn it on, it does the thing that you asked it to do. So if I had a lot of volunteers, I would probably not be using NDI or vMix because volunteers. So I would have them, hitting an ATEM and doing the thing because it keeps it nice and simple.
Alexander Knight.
I think there are pros and cons to using both hardware and software. A lot of the stability stuff, in my mind, has to do with what your level of experience is. But I think Alex's points are very, very valid. Get there early to make sure you can troubleshoot and test stuff. And this is also why I love digital mixers, because you can lock things down. Digital mixers give you the ability to create user accounts with limited permissions, so you can, once you save a scene and everything, that will save all your patching, you can lock it down and not allow people to make changes to anything. Now, in a lot of House of Worship environments, I know they rent out the space to other people. So, people are messing with things, messing with mic preamp settings. Who knows what kind of things they're doing with patching, that kind of stuff. So you want to be able to recall your scene and make sure that nobody has actually touched any of those settings. Those should be just for you. And of course, the other thing that kind of raises my eyebrow too is the kind of networking hardware, since so much of your stuff is reliant on robust, reliable networking. It makes me wonder what is actually there, and Mickey mentions that in the chat too. I think it would be helpful if you mention to us what kind of network switches. If you're running all of this stuff on consumer grade network switches, maybe they have power management stuff and it's turning the network, the network's going to sleep when there isn't a lot of activity. That is just going to wreak havoc on an NDI and Dante audio setup. So you really need to start examining that stuff.
Ronnie Hossoy.
Yeah, we've seen the similar stuff using NDI in the studio. But one thing I would just suggest, and that goes for everyone that are using NDI in their workflow, take a look at the NDI Discovery service, which is a part of the software that is delivered from NDI. So that is a small program that actually just are listening to every traffic regarding NDI on the network and kind of caches it like a DNS server, and make sure that everyone knows that this NDI transmitter is available on this and this address, etc., and makes it easier for software and hardware to know instantly which device is available on the network. So the discovery service is usually also used in cloud production, and is a really important part of having the total overview over all NDI devices. Moving on from that, hardware in the network is really important. If you have a older switch which is not handling this type of traffic, it should be changed with a newer, more modern multi protocol switch as soon as possible. But it could be other stuff as well. So another thing to look into is, are there any ground noise in the equipment? Do you kind of get your vibrating in your finger when you're touching a different type of equipment? That could also be a big issue if you have this type of noise propagating throughout the network and the cabling. So there could be a lot of stuff going on here.
A lot to analyze, Zach. Thank you for the question. Next question.
Daniel Patridge in Rochester, Minnesota is asking, Roland announced control of V80 HD switcher audio channels from Yamaha DM3 and recalled DM3 scenes from V80 HD. Most of us don't use the audio on the switcher. If you have a DM3, why use audio on a V80 HD?
And Alexander Knight's going to help you out. Alexander?
I don't know if all people don't use it. I'm sure there are plenty of people in the market that actually do use it. Maybe a lot of people on big teams don't use it, but I think in certain environments where you have one or two people, I mean, maybe if you're just a solo operator, I could see how that would be useful, but it has its limited use cases. I haven't actually tested it, but I think it's cool that Roland is adding this kind of integration and making, solutions that will make things simpler for people with low budgets that can't afford teams that operate a different console and all this different hardware and all these different pieces, and just have one person kind of manage it all. So I'd have to take a look at it a little bit in more detail, but it seems like a kind of a neat idea.
Next question.
Nigel Dessau in Orlando, Florida is asking, how will the release of the recent paper on AI impact Apple's WWDC announcements thinking?
And for those of you who don't know, today is the day for the Worldwide Developer Conference opening keynotes, so we're going to be paying attention to that. I think they happen at 10 o'clock, so just 2 hours after our show ends, that happens. Let's go to Nigel Dessau for his thoughts. Nigel?
Yeah, so I think of this as a question of, is this coincidence or is this setting the table? So the paper talks about AGI, artificial general intelligence, and asks, are the large language models that we're using, like ChatGPT, really AGI? In other words, are they really, really good AI? Or are they artificial narrow intelligence? Now, this may seem like an academic conversation. Amongst the AI community, there are various stages of AI, narrow, general, and then there's probably a third one, which some of us are getting involved with, which is artificial general decision-making. So is this just an intellectual observation, or does the timing say that Apple is going to have to do something today to explain where they are on AI, what their strategy is? Because I think even those of us who love the brand don't think they left themselves in a very good place after last year. So my question, to me at least, the question, was this white paper an attempt to say, you've all got AI wrong and it's something different and we'll explain it to this afternoon? Or is it just a coincidence that it came out the week before WWDC?
Ooh, how much coincidence do you believe in? Courtney Gooden, your thoughts?
I think it's just a coincidence. Apple is not very good for admitting mistakes, especially in WWDC announcements. They'll work on it privately, and then when they have something that's gangbusters or solves a particular problem, they will release it in the next time they have a public announcement of some sort, but not until they're really ready to deliver it. I think they learned their lesson last year. by announcing Apple Intelligence when it wasn't quite ready yet, or they had to go back to the drawing board. This white paper was interesting. I looked at it, and I've seen a couple of YouTube videos on poison pills, on data contamination, and how you can mess up the large language models or skew the testing models by contaminating the pre-trained tokens with results of the tests that are used to test the AI models. So if you load the tests in there, it's like cheating, if you load the tests that are used to test the AI models into the LLM model, it can contaminate and give you false readings for false test results. And there's also poison pills. I've seen some YouTube people where they talk about putting things on their websites and in their pictures that when they're scraped by the great Google or Amazon or X or all the people that are scraping data to form large LLMs, it can contaminate the data set and create havoc. So that will, by putting these little poison pills on their website, it can discourage people from scraping stuff without paying for it. And a lot of that is now getting into these trained models. So we got to worry about that. But I don't think it's going to make any effect on their announcements today.
Alex Lindsay.
I do think that they're probably setting the stage in the sense that they are spiking everybody else's. They're basically yucking everybody's yum about LLMs, like where it's actually going to go. Like, so, they're just saying, well, we're not going to do a lot about AI, but it's still pretty messed up and it's not going to go as fast as you think it's going to go. So we don't want to talk about it. So I think that, the concerns that came out in this paper is probably what contributes to Apple slowing down their AI development, because they're concerned about all these things. Like, these are all the things that they're thinking about internally, and because everyone else is going fast, they are going, hey, these are the things that we're thinking about, which is why we're moving slower than everyone else. So I think it does kind of justify why they're moving slower. I think that's the attempt by what it has. I think the problem that they have is that stormtroopers and Yetis, so funny on the internet, and it's really hard to get over the fact that there's so many stormtroopers and Bigfoots on the internet now. I saw a creator put up 6 videos of stormtroopers and said, I went from 0 followers to 120,000 followers in 3 days. Like, if you're not doing AI production, you should probably think about it. So anyway, I think that that's the hard part for Apple, is that regardless of it not being perfect, wow, it's running fast.
Yeah, I think we all feel that. Don't forget, we're taking your questions always. That's how the show runs. You can ask questions, chat about them, and vote on them, which is very important in Mukana. That's our light Q&A, our Q&A system that we use here on the show. If you want to get a bit involved in that, go to officehours.global/join. We'll send you an email within a day or two, and once you've done that, you can ask, vote on, and discuss the show's questions in the live community. I'm monitoring it. We always monitor it during the show, and some of our content comes from the very smart people who are hanging out in that discussion. That's officehours.global/join. Next question.
This one's from Todd Rains in Allen, Texas. Google Merchant Center just got updates, one of which is Product Studio that has image and short video generation from product images. Thoughts on implication to your next Google product search?
Courtney Gooden, dive in.
I don't think it's going to affect mine, because a lot of times when I'm looking for a product, if I know what it looks like, I'll just do a Google search for a description of the product, and then I'll switch over to images and see which image matches what I remember it looking like. And I'll go, oh, it was that one. If there's 20 different media players and I don't remember which one it was, I'll go to image search on Google. I'll find the one that looks like, oh, that's the one I bought last time. Click on that, and then that will take me to a place where I can find that. Because if I don't remember the name of that product, and they all have strange names, I can't find it other than searching for an image. So it may increase for people who don't take pictures of their stuff or don't post pictures of their stuff when they're listing it on their websites. It may be helpful for them, or it may generate a video that they can incorporate all the lies about their product into an AI video. That'd be great.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, I think I have Ryan Ewell, who might be listening right now in Rwanda, is working on building, an AI, a lot of AI ad production and so on and so forth. And he showed me some of the early versions, and I just think it's going to revolutionize what we do. You have to look at a lot of the stuff that we do. It doesn't require, the same level that a feature film requires. It's a 30-second thing about your product, or it's a turntable, and many people have been held back by the inability for them to be able to do something professional that a high quality studio can do. And now they're going to be, I think anybody's going to be able to do it. I don't think I think it's going to revolutionize how people sell things. I think I'm going to definitely experiment with it. I do think also, while we think, oh, well, this is going to get rid of everybody, people making the products will still not understand how to use the merchant center. There's a business there, like of saying, send me the images and I'll do the work for you and send you back the things that you need. So don't, it's moving. The who does what is moving. It's not going to eliminate as many things as you think. It's just going to change who's doing them. So that's often what happens with these technologies.
Next question.
This one's from Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. I have a 62-inch with Husky wheel desk with two 43-inch LG quads and need a solution for two mics, one for left PC and one for the right Mac. Should I go with boom arms, floor stands, or clamps to base?
Ronnie Hofsoy, can you help him?
Yeah, I would not recommend using clamps to a table or whatever you are planning to do with the clamps, because all this tapping and working on your desk while being live will reflect up through the arm of the microphone. And if you don't have a really, really expensive mount for that microphone, it will pick up everything you do on your desk. So what I tend to recommend, if you are looking for easy solutions, is just to get a K&M floor stand, maybe with just a round foot. Put it on the side, either side of your working table or your desk, and have it sit on the floor. And make sure you don't have a lot of things happening to your floor, of course. If there is a noisy neighbor below you, you would probably get that picked up as well. So you can have a yoga mat in between the floor if you have a hard floor and your round heavy foot. That's one of the easy solutions you can do. The other one is to have a grid or have it mounted in a kind of ceiling mount. I also have this what is it called? So you have these pods that or these rods that you can push between and lock between the floor and the ceiling. Those can also be used as horizontal. I tend to not trust that and just have it from the floor and up to the ceiling to have different stuff connected to that. And that is also kind of freestanding and not connected to anything else. So the trick is to have it disconnected from anything that can bring noise up through the mounts and into the microphone.
I think those are Manfrotto auto poles, and I have a bunch of them surrounding me. That is, it uses a friction process, a little lever that pushes it out, which means that you can put it between two walls or between floor and ceiling and get yourself isolated a little bit. For me, the other thing that I've always used is just sheer mass. If I give you a behind-the-scenes shot of me right now, there is so much on this desk. This is a huge Middle Atlantic desk that probably weighs 300 pounds as the base, and then on top of that, I've got so much stuff mounted to it that I probably get 600 pounds of stuff holding things in place. So when I have a clamp pole over here from Newer and an arm holding my microphone out, and then the mic itself has a shock mount, there's enough isolation there where I think anything short of an earthquake is going to be pretty much kept from hearing the rumble. So a lot of different ways. The more mass you have in your desk, though, I've always found out, the harder it is to be mobile with it, but the better it is for those transducer sounds, like hearing every tap on the desk. Nigel, you wanted to get in on this?
Yeah, I was just going to say I really like the low-profile arm from Elgato. That's what this is attached to. But you've got to not be a desk banger. If you're a desk banger and a dropper and a fiddler, then you want to get everything off the desk. I also have a shotgun mic, which is just up here somewhere, which you can't see, for when I want to do something without the mic being visible. But and that's just on a mic stand.
Don't forget, we do have other shows along with the regular office hours. And on Monday, tonight is one of those. That is when the folks in Australia kind of take over at 6 p.m. and Grant Whitehead and his crew do something like office hours, but in the evening. So tune in for that. You can find it on the website. And on Thursday, the rundown. Oh, Alex, you had a note?
I was going to say our big analyzing the WWDC is going to be extra hours. So what we're going to do at 10 a.m. and we'll send out. I'll do an all at everyone, everything else. But at 10 a.m. we're all jumping into after hours. So that's where we're going to watch the show. So we're going to jump into after hours at 10 a.m. and just have it. It's the old fashioned way for us to view it. We'll actually have it playing in there, and we'll all talk about it there. But then the extra hours is going to be when we're actually having a conversation. Oliver Breidenbach's going to join us. Adam Towell's going to join us, and so we'll have a big round table of what we think Apple released today.
Cool. You heard it here first. There's the rundown for today. The rundown I was mentioning, that's David's show on Thursday. Different thing. All right, next question.
This one's from Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. Is it possible to be live on 2 different YouTube channels at once from the same instance of vMix, Wirecast, MimoLive, etc.? How?
And Alexander Knight's going to flip right back around and answer the question.
I don't see why not. With MimoLive, it has YouTube integration. I've never tested to see if you can authenticate more than one YouTube account at the same time. But I mean, you can easily add custom RTMP servers, as many as your computer can handle. So I would test that thoroughly. Just make sure that with the setup that you have, with all the sources and graphics, and if you're doing playback, check your CPU utilization and memory utilization, and just make sure that you're not stressing your system more than it can handle. But if you have a beefy enough system that can handle streaming to multiple RTMP servers at the same time, then why not?
Ronnie Hofsaway.
Yeah, just to add to that, of course you can do this in most of these softwares without a problem. And I tend to use RTMP streaming and not log into the YouTube, and that's because I normally don't have. I don't need the extra functionality with chat messages, etc., which you can utilize in some of these softwares. So what I tend to do is, if I have a good bandwidth out of the venue or out of the room I'm in streaming from, I tend to just use this functionality in, for instance, MimoLive, and just add different outputs going in the different direction. The use case for us is to have different languages attached to each of these streams going out. So one can be English, one can be Norwegian, etc. And we also have Sami as a third language here in Norway. And the way we do this is just to add different outputs going with attached each different audio channel. If you don't have the high bandwidth connection in and out of your building or the venue, I tend to recommend to use something like Restream.io, which can have one connection going from your, and this is of course if it's not multi-language, etc. You can have one connection going out of the building to Restream.io, and as you can see here on the right side, I have lots of different RTMP connections going to different types of YouTube connections. So you can utilize that functionality, and Restream.io can also re-encode and make those outputs going to the different destinations with different resolutions as well. So there are different ways of doing this.
Alex?
Yeah, you got to be kind of careful with the software to make sure that you're not overdriving it. The thing that really makes a difference is when you start having to, and when you go to, if you're going to 2 different YouTube channels, it works pretty well because you don't have to do any scaling. Changing the scaling or changing the encode, any of the encode parameters puts a lot of pressure on a software encoder. Generally, I wouldn't have, unless I have a very powerful machine, I probably wouldn't start doing multicasting with a Mac or PC. I would generally use something else to do that. So you can send it to Restream online. You can send it to AWS online. You can send it to a hardware encoder that's built for this. Those are the kind of things. But you can absolutely, from a YouTube channel perspective, I believe that there's some channels that do up to, they can stream up to 8, the same show or possibly a show with different languages, to 18 or 20 different YouTube channels all at the same time.
And in the chat, Mickey says, you can do multiple encodes and transmissions with vMix 28 and MimoLive. Don't know about Wirecast. You can also use distribution tools such as MediaLive or Restream as well, of course. And John Wallace noted Wirecast has streaming to multiple destinations. Biggest issue is going to be having enough bandwidth to do it right. So that's some of the chat that goes parallel to our show every day. A lot of intelligence and wisdom there. Next question.
This one's coming from Craig Kadoki in Toronto, Canada. Can the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema 6K Gen 1 Non-Pro be used as a webcam over USB?
Alex Lindsay.
Only if you put an ATEM in between it or some other little box. So there's no USB out. That USB that's there, that's in that camera is for the hard drive, an external hard drive. But you can't connect that and use it as a webcam to the computer.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, it does have video out, but if you run it into, let's say, Blackmagic Design's Video Assist does have a USB-C output that will serve as a webcam. So you could run the USB, run the HDMI out into your Video Assist. Or I think it may not output video over USB-C, but if you run the HDMI out into a Video Assist, that you can then record on, the Video Assist will then act as a webcam on its USB output. So there's another alternative. That or use a Magewell or other video capture device.
Oh,
so the answer is
and I guess
not
Mickey said that the output UVC since the update last year, so I haven't tried it. So I could be wrong.
Oh,
so we'll have to take a look at it and see if the version 1 will do that output.
Yeah,
as well.
version 1 didn't do that in the past, but let's see.
Right.
I don't know if they have the firmware.
next question.
Omar Godon in Orange County, California. My YouTube live stream is stuck processing after I ended it. It's been 18 hours now, and I almost said 18 years on the stream. Still
that would be a problem.
It might feel that way. The live was great with 13K views while live. Anyone experiencing this and know how to retrigger the processing?
Alex Lindsay, can you help him out?
There's no way to retrigger it. My guess is that your stream was very long. I don't know how long that was, but if it was, once you start going over 2 hours, and especially if you go over 4 hours, you're going to end up with a much longer processing time. Sometimes that can be 24 to 48 hours. So I'm not certain that that's what happened for you. You have to let us know how long your actual stream was. I don't know how long it was, but if it was longer than 2 hours, and definitely if it was longer than 4 hours, you're going to see extended. Even our show here will process. Sometimes it might take up to 8 hours, and that's only 1 hour.
Drives me crazy. I did a Zoom recording yesterday with two of my actors for the book, and the processing afterwards, I decided to record it on Zoom, record the Zoom call between the three of us. A lot of good things happened on that recording, but one of the things that was crazy was coming back to it and realizing it needed about an hour to process everything and put it up in my folder. So I'm learning. Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, Omar said that 4 hours, and 4 hours is going to be a time when it takes time. What happens is when you have a longer one, you're now on the outer edge and you're deprioritized. so you are we'll get to you if, especially over a weekend where there's a lot of streams or other live streams that are shorter, they're going to be processed in the server faster than yours.
Things to learn. Next question.
Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington. Is office hours scraped by any large language models?
Alex?
We're talking to Opus about doing that right now, but we haven't done that yet. So we're looking at doing a test scrape of a month and seeing what we end up with, but we haven't gone down that path yet.
Next question.
From the QR code, Steve Jackson in Ohio. What does the Office Hours crew suggest as a solid submixer for live streaming? We'll take PGM feeds and mix with ambient stereo mics in the room. Ideas for best placement in event space, stage center.
Alex, what's your preference here?
So for doing a submix if you're doing the submix for live streaming, usually we want to be as far away from the event as possible. We don't want to hear it at all. We want to be listening with our headphones. We want to be in an isolated room. When we do concerts, oftentimes we have a place outside of the stadium that we'll want to mix into, because we don't want to have any of the what's going on in the stadium affecting what we're doing, because what our job is to make sure it sounds great for the people watching a little screen somewhere else. So you want to make sure you don't want to be next to the main mixing console, because that makes it almost impossible for you to make good judgment. So typically, as far as the mixer goes, it depends on what you need to do. Our most common sub mixer is a QL1, which they don't make anymore. But Yamaha mixers are good. We've also used plenty of X32s because we're not doing something that, we're already getting oftentimes line feeds back. And the question is, how many of your feeds are you going to get? You think that you want all the stems, but it's really hard to manage all the stems because you're not the one doing all the work on them in live. So sometimes we'll have groups, some stems that are groups of things that we can control. Things that we, obviously mics in the audience, either shotguns or lavs are the kind of things we often put into the audiences to get some crowd noise. A lot of people put them in a lot of places. What we find is that spreading them 20 or 30 feet apart in the front gives us the most natural sound, because that's actually what the speakers are hearing, what folks are hearing in the front. We don't usually put them in the back or in the middle or other things like that. We just haven't found them to be that effective. As far as the other thing that we may get as a submix is sometimes there's music being played in that we can't use for the stream. And so oftentimes, if we're working with an event company, we'll have them do a 4-track, which is basically the 2 tracks that are going to go to the event, and there's 2 other tracks in the video or in the system that's going to come to us. And so we have to build a different bus that's going to send that out to us. And so then we get a different thing, and they don't have to think about it. Like, no one has to do anything. When they hit play on it, it just sends us what we need. So those are the other things to think about when you're doing that submix. But again, I think that for the most part, as far as what mixers do we use, I know that it's not so much that you have to use a Yamaha mixer. It's just what we've used most.
Alexander Knight?
Yeah, so Steve, you didn't mention budget for mixers. Like, if it's on the lower end, I'm really a big fan of the Yamaha DM3 consoles, specifically the Dante version. In fact, actually, I just bought a second one, which I'm going to be using in the summer as a monitor mixer. And there are different ways of sending mixes. You can, of course, use analog splits to send it to a different console. Of course, you can use Dante as well. So there's different ways of approaching that. For ambient mics, a lot of people use Sennheiser 416s. Alex mentions shotgun mics. That's a very popular one. Again, depends on what your budget is. If you don't have a budget for a $1,500 shotgun, I'm actually really liking these. I've used these for various different solutions. I started using these for choirs. These are the Universal Audio SP1s. I've also used them on pianos, and also I've used them to just point at the crowd to get crowd noise. They sound really, really nice, and they're a low profile, little short stubby pencil condenser mic. And for $400, you get a stereo pair. And in the box, Universal Audio includes this little stereo mounting bar, so you can do a spaced pair or do an XY configuration as well. So the Universal Audio SP1s.
Next question.
Another QR code question from Ola in Kent, United Kingdom. I'm trying to set up a mobile studio in a hallway with some background crowd noise. Presenters would be hearing probably P2 IEMs to hear themselves. How do I mix the director voice to the IEMs without it getting on the main output? Any advice?
Alex Lindsay.
Welcome to buses. So you're going to be, so depending on what kind of mixer you have, what you're going to do is each one of them, either both of them will have the same bus, or each one of them will have 2 separate buses. Oftentimes we will split those buses out. We'll have, so that we can say things individually to those folks. At that point, you're now routing, they're listening to the program or whatever else you want to send them, plus other audio inputs that you're able to send in, and that can be coming in. Oftentimes, we'll have something where we have Unity, like the person's on Unity or on ClearCom, and they are somewhere else in the world. They come in, and we're routing that back into the mixer. That mixer then is routed into their ear. Those are all things that can be done fairly effectively. But it's just a matter of setting up individual buses for each person. You do have to be careful. When you start mixing people's in-ears in the same mixer that you're doing the program, you have two things that are very close together that don't want to mix. So you have to really heavily test it, and and you want someone that's in the director feed, whether that's local or remote, to be testing it while you're listening to the program and on a stream to make sure that nothing is going out that you don't expect to. But these are mix minuses that you would normally do there to make that work.
Courtney Gooden.
And another way to prevent the leakage is to put it on a completely different system, like use a different computer for Unity. And the IFB, which we always talk about as the little in-ear device that people listen to, stands for interruptible feedback or interruptible foldback, so that you're feeding them program feed, but it can be interrupted by someone who is on comms. So that, for example, on Unity, it has settings to feed your program feed into Unity. And you can set levels on how much of the program feed is fed in and how much it will duck that sound when somebody speaks over the comm line to that particular person. So by setting up comms and driving the program over comms, you can control who speaks to the person and whether it's going to interrupt them and interrupt their train of thought, and when to speak to them and how much program audio you're feeding to them. So that's why it's called interruptible feedback. But most comm systems have a method of feeding program back in, and sometimes they split it between ears, and they'll have a receiver that you plug their IFBs into, and it can be a stereo split headphone so that program comes in one ear and comms comes in the other ear, so you can divide it up by that. But if it's on a completely different system and you're feeding the output of your program mixer that's going to your speakers into the comm systems, it has no way of getting back out into the main program feed unless they have it turned up so loud that it bleeds from their earpiece into a microphone, especially if they've got a boom microphone mounted close to that earpiece. It could bleed over that way if they have the IFB turned up too loud so that comms start leaking then into the microphone. But I would suggest a separate system rather than doing a mix minus on the main mixer that you're doing your program mix on.
Alexander Knight.
Yeah, everything that has already been said, of course, you're going to have to practice and learn about how to route stuff with auxiliary buses and all that stuff. A couple things I will say to be careful about, because I've seen this happen before, where people have created monitor mixes and thought their talkback was routed to the right place, and it was, except that they forgot to remove that talkback mic from the main left and right, and when they started talking, it went right out to the audience. So just be really careful about that. And then, of course, my advice is to get yourself a pair of really high-quality in-ear monitors. When I do mixes, I actually routinely check mixes, and in fact, I wear these at events when I'm doing these mixes, and I will solo that bus because I want to hear what the artist is hearing in their ears. It's hard for me to really craft a mix and to troubleshoot stuff if I can't actually hear what they are hearing. So make sure you know about how to solo buses, and make sure that you actually check on headphones as well.
Ola, hope that helped. Next question.
All right, this question is one of mine, and it is about a live streaming issue. Yesterday, when we were live streaming, Mitch played an air check from the 70s when he was on WAMS. Test streams said no copyright issues. When we did the actual live stream, about 8 minutes into the show, he played the air check, and then about 25 minutes later, it died on its own. I looked at the live stream afterwards, and it said we didn't get a strike, but we had a copyright flag from Chicago. So I couldn't find any definitive information. Is it possible that the stream just died because of that?
Alex?
How long was the clip?
It was 4 minutes, but we didn't play the entire thing. But it was definitely like several minutes of it.
And when you say it died, what?
Well, we were. I'm pretty sure. Like I don't think I accidentally pressed the wrong button. It's just we were in the show, and all of a sudden I looked at the YouTube dashboard. Like here's the thing.
And what did the dashboard say?
Was still going. The dashboard said show over. So the dashboard had stopped.
Do you still have is that event still up there?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, actually, I think I may have deleted it already.
Yeah, one thing,
I had the local record.
One thing that you want to do is anytime you have a problem in YouTube is to never delete the event. So always make the event private. Keep it, because it's hard to analyze later if you get rid of the event. So this is a very common thing that people do. They're like, oh, it didn't work, and then they delete it. All the data's gone. So you want to make sure that always set it to private. It is unlikely, if you played something that was copywritten for less than 5 minutes, it's unlikely that that was the cause. So it's not impossible, but it's unlikely. The other thing to do is anytime you have something you're going to play, and you know you're going to play it, what you want to do is upload it to YouTube, and as a separate file, and it'll tell you what flags there are. So they have a service that does that. So we take files all the time, and we used to just play them out. I have all these YouTube burner accounts, and we would just play them. We would just here are all the songs in my show. I'm going to play them all into that live stream and just see what happens. Like I'm just going to play all the songs and see what happens in my. And if my burner got a strike, I would move on to another burner and let that one. The strikes disappear every 6 months, or they used to. So you just move on to another one and keep working. But strikes are very if you're not playing the Eagles, strikes are very rare at this point. What you typically get are flags, and most of us, if you're monetizing, the flag is a big deal. If you're not monetizing, who cares? So I think that's so you just have to decide what you're looking for. But if you only got the flag, and if you got a strike, it's a highly possible that it killed your stream. But if you only got a flag, flags are kind of like a yellow card. Like they don't really mean anything.
Courtney Gooden.
I did hear part of that show, and where he did the air check. He was playing intros and outros of songs from the 60s. And so, it may have been the music, but I'm thinking if you got a copyright flag from Chicago, those air checks included the call letters of the station. And wasn't he on a station in Chicago? So maybe calling out the call letters may have generated some kind of pull the plug trigger, because if it's conflicting with that particular station whose call letters he's using has material that's streaming on YouTube, maybe it detected that IDing as that station call letters and pulled the plug from Chicago, if that was perhaps. So that's another possibility other than the music rights copyright flag. It could be the station's call letters. And it could be an FCC issue that if you're identifying yourself as a station in an air check, it might be illegal to broadcast that air check over the public airwaves again if you're not that station.
Alex Lindsay.
It's very unlikely that anything happened there. If you said something wrong that is in passing or it consistently changed, it is not it's not. That would be an unusual thing for it to happen. I can tell you from a lot of experience around YouTube is that it's pretty robust, and it gives you a lot of room, and usually gives you a lot of warning. One thing I will say, Alex, is you want to have the YouTube page up all the time when you're streaming. So have a separate window with the YouTube page. If it's going to shut you down, it's going to warn you. Like there's a little, but it only warns you in the live view. So you want to be looking over at the live view to see if, just glancing over, especially if you're playing something that's copywritten, but it'll flag you. It'll tell you hey, I'm going to.
Are you talking about what the actual page, like that people would be on?
No. The live event,
the studio,
the live studio page will run a warning if it's going to take you down. So it's, and it'll run it for some time if it's going to take you down. Like, hey, you are, you're breaking so you have to have that open. When you're doing any stream that matters, you have to have that window open. You have to have someone looking at it relatively often. It's not going to blink and then have it do it. It's going to do it. You're going to get alarmed for a while before it turns on. Before it
I didn't
turns
see
off
anything. I didn't see anything like that. The only other thing that I can think of is because I have so many computers and a KVM. The only thing I can think of is that if I had my KVM set to that computer where the YouTube dashboard was, if I clicked my mouse, I may have accidentally clicked the end show button. I think, to be honest with you, I think that's the most likely output. And the most likely outcome was that you accidentally clicked it, which is, again, one of the reasons that, So you want to keep that separate. You want to be careful of where those things are.
Hey, if you value what we do here, there are a few ways you can help. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can volunteer at officehours.global/volunteer. Great group of people that you'll become a part of the team. Or you can simply donate at officehours.global/donate. We are a 501c3, so thank you. Next question.
Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona, USA. Smallrigs new cart, $18.99 via crowdfunding. What do you think?
Alex Lindsay, what do you think?
Looks pretty interesting. So this is the one that they have here. So this is it's a cart, but what's kind of cool about it is that it comes in. You can actually just kind of roll it up. You can see it here. You can roll the cart up, and then you basically assemble it there. And pull it up here. It's about $1,900. It was designed by a creator. They have this thing, I think they call it the Dream Studio, which is that they work with creators to ask them what they want. So you'll see there are a variety of mounts on the outside for putting things together. So you can see a lot of different modularity that's built into it. I would love to play with one. I don't have the budget available to spend $1,900 on a cart at the moment. But I definitely would consider this one. And one of the things that I'm noticing about Smallrigs specifically is you watch companies and you watch them start to go up market. So Smallrigs started as something that was relatively inexpensive. They were a little above newer when they got started. And what I'm noticing is they're releasing a lot of their components, with much higher quality pieces. So they've taken a bunch of market share with the less expensive stuff, and now what they're doing is they're building nicer versions of all of those things. And I feel for Blue Condor, because Blue Condor builds better things in my opinion, more rugged things. But the problem is if Smallrigs starts to take Smallrigs market share is much larger than Blue Condor, and they are and they're not built in the United States, and so the problem is that bubble is going to start coming up. But that's what we're seeing here. And they are really working closely with a lot of creators. They're making a lot of stuff that I don't agree with from the creators are having them make, but it's really interesting how they're being very agile as they start to develop a lot of those things. I just bought the little screen around here somewhere, but I bought the little Smallrig screen, and it works great. So those are the kind of things that they're doing pretty quickly.
Courtney Gooden?
Yeah, I took a look at it. The only thing I can criticize of it, it looks very neat, is that they've designed it so it folds down and packs up into this easily transportable spot that you can, transportable package that you can roll through the airport. It has the bigger wheels on the inside, you can see here. But my criticism is of these tiny 1-inch casters that clip on and off when you're taking it through the airport or checking it as luggage. Those things are going to get knocked off, especially the way that they're sticking out so much. So I hope that they have a way of detaching those. They do detach because you replace them with the big wheels once you get there. I hope you can detach them before you check them as luggage, so that you only put them on when you're transporting them, from the luggage carrier, from the airliner to your car, and vice versa. Otherwise, these small wheels are going to get knocked off the first time you transfer it. Then they pop on these bigger wheels, which are stored inside the unit. So that's handy to have. But transporting it between, when you fold it flat, to transport it in your truck or car or on an airline is going to be problematic with those little wheels. So they might try and think of a better solution instead of those pop-off 1-inch casters that they have, like the Pelican cases that have the smaller diameter wheels, but they're built into the edge of the shelf so that they can't get knocked off. They're not swivel, so that they can just go in one direction and aren't easily knocked off when they go into a luggage, into a luggage handling belt somewhere.
Alex, you wanted to come back in?
Yeah, and I think they're probably more designed for, I don't know if I would check this. I think they're more designed for cars and vans and so on and so forth. And I definitely can see how this one would fit nicely in my van. So I think that having something that's kind of a multi-use cart would be pretty useful.
What I find fascinating is that for years, the biggest ones, magliners and things like that you saw on sets everywhere, were designed for a heavier class of gear, bigger cameras, bigger batteries, bigger everything. And you're seeing a real transition now to more mobile filmmaking gear that's smaller, lighter weight, and more agile, as creators are not taking out the huge stuff that the former generation of filmmakers did.
I will say, I really think it's important for a lot of us that have done larger productions to pay very close attention to what's happening in the market right now. It is moving very, very fast. We're in that moment where things are moving super fast between AI and creators who are getting more and more tools built for them. This is a really highly competitive market, and that's part of why you're seeing Hollywood get really slow, is because they don't know what to do next.
Yeah, they're not pivoting very quickly into the
because they just don't have a model. They don't have a model for it.
They don't. I agree with you 100% in that. And why so much iPhoneography is happening out there with people who want a small thing that has things like you were showing, extra capacity that you can bolt on that makes it more like the big cameras, but still in the small form factor that everybody uses every day. It's a transition. Next question.
This one is from Rafat Al-Sayed in Toronto. I'm exploring intercom solutions like Unity Intercom Cloud. Is it possible to route the master mix to the host via virtual cable, both remotely and on site? Also, how can I set up a mix minus for the host mic in vMix? Thanks.
If only there was a daily show that did this all the time. Alex, can you think of anything that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the question is that this may be this is a great example of one that's probably a little bit more complex from audio routing perspective, and I'm going to shelve this one and have you bring this back on Wednesday, because there's a lot of folks that both know vMix as well as how to tie these things back together. But Wednesday is a great place to kind of figure that one out. So bring that back on Wednesday. We've got a great crew on Wednesday to answer out those audio questions.
Next question is coming up, and pay attention to where he's coming from.
This is Roland Booth in Jamaica. What do you look for when selecting HDMI cables for home and professional use?
Sorry, I got the response wrong. Anyway, Ronnie Hofsoy is going to help you with this question.
Yeah, so for home use, you probably would install it and just leave it. So you can, if you're looking at the length you need for projectors in the ceiling or long distance, you could probably go with not the cheapest budget version of HDMI fiber version. And if it's shorter than, let's say, 10 to 12 meters, which is, in foot, you do the math, you can go with traditional HDMI cables. And of course, there is a limitation to all these cables. Not every cable can do 60 frames in 4K, for instance. If you are needing 8K, you need to be sure that you have a cable that is actually certified or tested with that use. So make sure you purchase from a place where you can return it. The different type of cables is normally cable, and you have fiber cable, and you need to be sure that you have cables that support your frame rates and specifications. Another thing to think of when you're thinking professional and HDMI is nothing that goes well in my vocabulary. We tend to use, of course, HDMI cables going out from the camera, maximum 3 to 4 feet maybe, and then we convert it always to SDI, and we started to play with other protocols as well. So doing this professionally, I would tend to stay away from both wireless and HDMI solutions, as they are adding to the complexity, and if you have problems, for instance, with the copyright tagging, you can end up with a black signal. So as soon as possible, get everything over to SDI. That's my general recommendation, and sooner than later, I would say.
Courtney Gooden?
Yeah, it depends. I've had mixed luck with HDMI cables, buying them from different sources. If I'm doing interconnects, let's say inside a case between equipment and a patch panel that's on the back, I will use these. I've been using these monoprice thin ultra thin because it makes cable management so much easier inside a case. However, I've found them, these are supposedly rated for 8K, 60 hertz, and they're fairly cheap for, this is for a 3-foot short cable. I would not run them long cables, and I would not use these thin cables on anything that's going to be connect and disconnect a lot, where you're going to flex the cable or there's going to be any strain on it, because I find that after a short period of time, one of the connectors will break down and they'll stop working. So that they're fairly fragile. Also, some of the thinner cables are unidirectional because they will have impedance because of the tininess of all those little coax cables that are in that little tiny jacket. They will have impedance matching circuits that are in one of the connectors, so they will be unidirectional, so that it'll have an input and an output, and observe that correctly, because if you have it hooked up the wrong way around, even though it's the same connector on both ends, the signal will not pass. So beware of that. I find also I try to avoid hooking up thick, those braided nylon jacketed cables that are, quarter of an inch or thicker to anything that's going to be moving around, because the cables are so heavy and so stiff that if you're moving a camera around with one of those connected to it, you're going to damage the connector built into the camera because of all the strain placed on it because of that stiff cable. That's where I use the skinnier cables as a short jumper to a thicker cable that's anchored somewhere to make your long runs with. So I look at how it's going to be used, the length it's going to be, and whether or not it's unidirectional or bidirectional. And if it gets longer than 10 meters, I go to some type of fiber or convert to SDI.
Alexander Knight.
Well, Roland, since you're asking about HDMI cables, from my personal experience, for anything up to 24 feet, I have been using these. The Roland Black Series HDMI cables. They've been really robust. The only negative thing I will say with these, I haven't had a single failure in several years with these, is that the PVC jacketing is really, really thick, which makes the cable incredibly heavy. This is not the type of cable I would probably hang off of something that would cause a lot of weight and stress on the actual jack itself. But I use these actually for all my cameras going into my ATEM switcher, and they've been absolutely rock solid. They may be a little bit more expensive than the generic stuff you're going to find off of Amazon, but I would highly recommend you try them out.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, I make sure that they're all rated for 8K 60. So I don't buy anything less than that if they're not rated that. It just makes it, they tend to be more stable. I have a lot of different ones I get for different reasons. So one of the things that I have, you'll see these little ones that have, they have multicolors. And so I'll buy ones with lots of colors so that when I'm plugging them in, I know where they are on the other side, especially into my like ATEM or something like that. You can see that I purchased these ones as well. I like braided cables on shorter runs because they just don't stick up with other things, which I like. Another thing to think about is being when you're running them, look for ones that have this kind of little insert, and this is actually even bigger. There's a lot of different ones. I don't know if I'd necessarily get this one, but one of the problems you have is when you're running cables, when you're running HDMI cables through things, is that the HDMI part is too big. And so this is actually just an example. I'm not recommending this one specifically because some of these will get down to where they're just a nub at the end of the fiber. So the fiber can be pulled through long distances and then reattach to it. Obviously, you don't want to do that when you're moving a lot, but when you need to move things, sometimes you just can't move the HDMI cable through. So you want to kind of look at that from a fiber. Remember that they are one way. So if you're going to pull it through a bunch of pipes, make sure you get it right. Ask me how I know.
Next question.
This one is a QR code question from Rafat Al-Sayed in Toronto. We're organizing a 6-room, 5-hour conference with short breaks. Each room has PA line out, audio embedded into Sony Z200 camera feeds. Fiber optics is preferred. What multi-view switcher and recorder do you recommend? Many thanks.
Alex?
My question is, what are you using the multi-view switcher for? So are you switching between the different shows? Are you just routing shows? Typically, this is where I would use probably an ATEM. Like, it doesn't sound like you're doing a lot of heavy work on it. You just want things to work. So I would have a tendency to have these running into an ATEM. As far as I'd probably put them into an ATEM that has routing capabilities so that you can route through it. If you want to go a little bit bigger, put a router in. and then be able to pass them off. The way I record these are hyperdecks. So like if someone hires me to do records and the records matter, I'm going to try to record onto the camera because you already have the audio going into the camera itself. So I'm going to record the off the hyperdecks, or I'm going to record off of the and of course you can get things that are much more expensive like Ultrix, Carbonites, and so on and so forth. But for what you're doing in the size of the cameras, I'm going to guess your budget, and I'm going to say that you're probably going to be fine. You can get the little mini hyperdecks or the 1U hyperdecks. I use a lot of 1U hyperdecks for most things. I don't really record on SD cards for things that I'm getting paid for. And so for when I get paid to do a record, I've got a 1U hyperdeck with an SSD that I put in, and we have many of them that we use for that.
Ronnie?
Yeah, there is so much information that is missing in this question. It seems to me that you are doing a multi-room or different type of conferences in parallel with each other, which makes me think that you need to be recording each conference separately. So normally I wouldn't do that with one single vision mixer or mixer. I would do that separately in every room. And we actually do those things frequently. And we have flight kits containing 8M1ME Constellation HDs, one recorder. We have a Mac Mini in that to do the presentations, and we route everything in those mixers or the switcher and do the recording separately out. Another thing to be thinking of, if there is an audio engineer in that room only making the microphones from the participants on stage live, you probably would like him or her to add a contentum microphone to have the room ambience as well, just a bit lower, and add that to the recording as well, and then do the switching between all those. These cameras that you have selected are really, really nice. They have an SDI output. Just make sure that you are not using the auto tracking, because if you start the auto tracking on those cameras, it will kill the output on the SDI and will only stream video out through the HDMI. So then you have to convert that into an SDI with a converter as well. So that is my 2 cents to this, but if you would like, add some more information to the question and ask it again, and we will probably be giving you a better answer.
Sorry, we ran a little bit over today, but we're here to answer your questions, and we like to do that as thoroughly as possible. Thanks, many, many thanks to our producers, all of you who asked the questions, put them into the mix today. We appreciate it. Without you, this show does not happen. So really, thank you so very much. To the panelists who show up and freely give their expertise every day, thank you, thank you, thank you. And to the back-end crew, the sometimes unsung heroes. I say that because you'll see their names on the credit roll. Please pay attention. These people put in a lot of work, and without them, we can't do this as well. Our stats today, the Thalak traversal, that's 26,000 miles is how far you would have had to travel to get to the people who gave you the answers today. 42,000 kilometers, that is 207 million bananas for scale. Don't forget, we're going to cover live Apple in after hours in 2 hours. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
I forgot about WWDC that was happening
10
today.
o'clock.
I just
10
had
o'clock.
to book. I booked like 3 client things today. I'm like, why did I do that? I just should have said no. I just want to sit at home and I just want to watch this.
Just think of it as a savings. Yeah,
There you go.
money you'll save.
Yeah, exactly.
See y'all.
Bye-bye. Mañana.